everyone for being here today. We have some good information for you all. And I want to thank all of our panelists. We have some really good panelists. And I want to just, as always, encourage you, if you're not a member of the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition, we're public-private nonprofit 501c3 corporation, focus a lot on clean transportation and energy and equity and justice as well. And so we are always encouraging people to become a member of our great organization. So we have a good group of panelists. I want to just read about them really quickly. First is R.Denise Everson, directs human capital programs at ThinkBox, where she leads the Sustainable Communities Project as a leader of Making and Keeping Friends. Denise uplifts under-resourced communities to further entrepreneurship, amplify STEAM, education, create realistic jobs, and promote wellness. Denise has worked in community redevelopment at the DC Housing Authority, consulted to the Connecticut Green Bank and the Institute for Market Transformation, and taught workforce development at the University of District of Columbia. She was a presidential scholar and graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Architecture from Hampton University. She earned a Master of Public Policy from George Washington's University's Public Policy Institute, now the McCourt School, with a focus on housing and education policy. She is a recipient of the National Architects Foundation Pettigrew Memorial Scholarship and American Institute of Architects Associates Award. She is an inductee to Hampton University inaugural 40 Under 40 as well. She donates time and talent to her local community as a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I just can't get away from these Deltas. I got one in my house too, and a daughter that's a Delta. Continental Societies, Inc. and the Junior League of Washington. She is the founding board secretary of Minerva Vision Group as well. Welcome, Denise. Ira Dorfman is a senior advisor for the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. He has extensive public policy and private sector experience at the congressional, federal, state, and local levels in cutting-edge technology, clean transportation, energy, conservation, and the environment. He served as a professional staff member of the United States Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, and as an international program manager of the U.S. Department of Energy USAID funded Clean Transportation Program in India, where he traveled frequently. He also held positions as a National Trade Association executive and as a Washington representative for a variety of companies and institutions. Throughout his career, he's worked on numerous alternative fuel transportation projects, including the vehicle use of battery electric and hydrogen fuel cells, natural gas, propane, and biodiesel and ethanol. He is a graduate of Kenyon College, Gambier, Ohio, and attended graduate school in public administration at University of Rutgers. All right. Ellie Hopson, he's the CEO, and we had a great time with your team at the DDOT's Open Streets on Saturday.
Thank you.
Here they had a great turnout. We shared some space. They put them across the street from us, but it was all good. And I had a lot. I wore your hat, DC Green Bank hat, and I had so many questions. I had to take my hat off because they were like asking me all these questions. So we had a great response out there. So thank you. He is CEO of DC Green Bank, where he leads the strategic and operational implementation of DC Green Bank's programs and fosters relationships with key partners and stakeholders. His thoughtful and decisive approach has so far successfully led DC Green Bank through the challenge of launching operations during COVID-19, a global pandemic. Under a steady leadership, DC Green Bank has developed its first financial offerings, established strategic relationships, and explore opportunities to realize the district's ambitious clean energy goals. The DC Green Bank's mission of becoming the integrated hub of innovation and investment to accelerate DC's transition to a sustainable and thriving future. Just a little bit about his background. He served as VP of Legal and Chief Compliance Officer at Eagle Bank. His prior experience also include Latham and Watkins Union of Concerned Citizens, U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Science, and U.S. Department of Energy Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. He has a law degree from Georgetown University Law Center, an MS and BS in Environmental Engineering from MIT. Welcome, 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 welcome. We got some great folks for you all today, and we're going to get right into it. I know you all want the information. There's a lot of federal money out here, and we want to make sure that we do everything we can to ensure that you all have access to these resources. I do want to mention we have two power panels next week. One is going to be on alternative fuels and helping to reach climate solutions. And then we'll have one that's going to talk about, can the grid handle all the AVs? Can the grid handle it in the DMV? So two great panels next week. So let's get right into it. I want to start with our former executive director and also a senior advisor to GWR-CCC, Ira Dorfman, who will set the stage for all of the federal funding that's out there right now.
Hey, thank you, Antoine. I wanted to, someone needs to allow my screen sharing so I can pull up a PowerPoint. Kim, can you do that?
You should be good.
All right. Can you see that?
Try it again.
Okay. Everybody see that?
Yes.
So Antoine's asked me to do the impossible in 7 minutes to explain all the funding opportunities that are currently available, and that's really not possible to do. So what I really wanted to show everyone was where you can find this information on your own, and of course GWR-CCC is a resource for you as well. So if you have a specific interest in a project that you'd like to get funded, of course, we encourage you to call us because we can help point you in the right direction, or even collaborate with you to find the right funding opportunities. But what I did want to do is just to quickly run through a few slides and give you some ideas. First of all, a great place to look for funding opportunities is the Alternative Fuels Data Center. It's part of DOE, updated frequently. We'll share the slide deck, so you make sure that you get have access to this. But if you look at the bottom left, the afdc.energy.gov is the website, and then if you there's a section on laws and incentives for all fuels, and gives you a much better idea of what's available. And I'm hoping, just to give you an example, if I pulled up the state of Maryland from the website, you can see, we're talking about the new National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Plan. That's a federal program, and how individual states are implementing it. But if you scroll down the page, there's a lot of stuff on alternative fuel grant programs in Maryland, and maximum grant awards, and which fuels are eligible. lot of the clean energy grants that are administered by the Clean Energy Administration, charging equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, we could spend all day talking about this, and when we have and also utility programs. I think there, you know, Pepco, for example, has a lot of good programs for which fleets can take advantage, and you need to be aware of that. So, you know, I would encourage you to just go through and look at these, look at the website and tear through this stuff, because there's state incentives, utility programs, laws and regulations for all the jurisdictions, not just for Maryland. And I'll go back to you know, the same thing is true for DC and for Virginia. So we have the same opportunity to go through those things, and I'd encourage you to look at that. And then, you know, what's available in new grants, you know, as part of the new infrastructure, bipartisan infrastructure bill. There's a huge new $500 million EPA clean school bus program. That's detailed at the EPA website, and then an ongoing program that gets renewed every year, for which many fleets would be available by replacing your old diesel vehicles with all kinds of alternative clean alternative fuels. There's both a federal and a state portion of that. There's $100 million available every year. I think the next funding cycle starts in January. So it's something that you can get ready for and apply for. Again, both of these programs are detailed on the US EPA website. And then I just, you know, quickly wanted to point out, you know, things have become quite electric centric. I know there's some other speakers on our panel today that can talk about other fuels, and while the reason we keep talking about electrification is that there's a boatload of money that's focused on this as a result of the Biden administration. But there is a lot of money available for natural gas and propane and biodiesel as well. So I would encourage you to again look back at those websites. But two major programs that GWRCCC is involved in. One is the Mid-Atlantic Electrification Partnership. Again, on our website, there are opportunities for fleets to get low cost or no cost level 2 chargers put in there at their facilities, but it would require public access, not maybe 24 hours a day, but there'd be an opportunity for you to cash out on some of the grants that GWRCCC is already administering. And a school bus, a Mid-Atlantic electric school bus experience. Again, we just recently had a meeting with the DC public schools, but in Maryland, Virginia, and DC, any school district that wants to participate in a pilot project before they go out and buy more school buses can work with us on a demonstration program. And we also have free level 2 charging stations for participating school districts that they don't have to return. It's theirs to keep once that the pilot project is over. So I guess, you know, in 50 words or less, please look at these sites, because you know, it's really impossible in a short period of time to detail everything. As Antoine said, there's a lot of money out there. You have to do your homework, but we're your resource to point out where those opportunities are. So you can contact Antoine or you can contact me. We can point you in the right direction, and in some instances, we're also in a position to help you write or participate in a grant. So I will stop there. Antoine?
Thank you. Thank you. We'll come back to you in a little bit, but I also want to emphasize Ira's point of we are here. If you ever are thinking about a grant, we do letters of support oftentimes for public and private grant seekers. And I'll think about us as a partner, right? If you got to do community engagement, you need to do some outreach. You're looking to work with the community in other different ways. You need some survey work or some research work done. You're always looking to be a sub-recipient on a grant for you. So sometimes you all folks are scratching, who should they work with? Well, you should work with GWRCCC. We're here to work. We love it. We want to be a partner with you on a grant. So want to do that. Next, I want to go, and I got a couple things I'll share after the last speaker, and then we'll go right into questions and answers. So I want to go to Eli, who has been given a tremendous opportunity to lead the DC Green Bank at a really important time in our country, particularly in the region. And so Eli, tell them about all the great things that you all are doing and all that. I think you got what, $130 million they've allocated to you or something like that?
Committed. We don't have all that on hand just yet, but thank you, Antoine. We have, so I'm with the DC Green Bank. DC Green Bank is a quasi-public institution. We're an independent agency of the DC government. We're governed by a 7-member board of voting members, and then another 4 ex officio non-voting members. They're nominated by the mayor and then confirmed by the council. So we are independent. We're off the city's balance sheet, but the city has committed a grand total of around 125 million. We're about 40 million into that. We have focused on projects that increase sustainability, that support clean economy. So making sure we're creating jobs here in the DC region, and also inclusive prosperity. So making sure that our projects are supporting all residents of DC, regardless of geography, income status, credit, race, gender, etc. So we're firmly committed to those core values and have a vision of a thriving clean economy for all DC. We were created in 2018 and as part of the Clean Energy DC Act, where DC also set its goal to reduce climate emissions 50% by 2032, and then ultimately to getting to net zero. So with that commitment, the city also created us to help finance and support that transition. So we fill financing gaps, we look to accelerate the transition and look to make sure that as we're doing that, all of those great entrepreneurial activity, as much of it as we can, we're keeping here in DC and keeping the profits from these projects staying here in DC. In terms of sectors, just to give the broad overview, we're focused on solar power, stormwater resilience, high performance buildings, and then of course of interest to this group, clean transportation, primarily vehicle electrification, and so that's vehicles and charging. So we can do EV and fleet, we can finance the infrastructure and access, and we can finance the vehicles themselves. One point that I always have to make clear, especially when I'm speaking on a panel titled Grant Opportunities, is we do not have the authority to make grants. We do have the ability to finance a wide variety of projects. And so much like the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Program, we'd love to work with you on your grant application. We can provide financing, which in some cases may be eligible for the match. We can provide bridge financing, clean school buses, as that's coming out. We know that is a rebate program. So you're getting a reimbursement from the federal government sometime after you put some money on the table. We can provide financing for that gap period if that's helpful. So, our main goal is to be innovative and to try and bring as much of these additional dollars that we can from the federal government, but also from philanthropic sources and from private capital that's interested in providing reasonable rates for sustainable projects. Some examples of the kinds of financial projects that we have in place, we can do pre-development financing. So if you're trying to figure out how to get started, or you need some engineering help to start designing your system before you can even seek, sort of more construction focused or permanent financing, we can do pre-development. We do construction financing, we can do permanent financing. Given the significant O&M savings that EVs are offering compared to typical diesel fueled or gasoline fueled vehicles, we can finance based on that savings. And so looking at, your current expenses as a fleet owner or, an entity that's purchasing fleet services, we can take that same cost level that you're seeing, put that to financing an upgrade to the fleet to transition to EV and cover the infrastructure costs. And we do this sort of financing. It's like the pay as you save is one of the models that's been used. We're talking with the utility about, can we finance that on your electric meter? That's still a discussion in progress, but maybe something of interest, particularly for groups that are newer, may not have fulsome balance sheet, or may not have as long of a history, that make typical finance more difficult. Other projects that we've done, we do pilot and structure projects. So, we have some form documents, but for unique and innovative projects, we can be flexible. We're also participating with the city on the affordable multifamily housing accelerator. This is focused on the building energy performance standards, but as part of that, we want to make sure that we're supporting EV charging infrastructure going into, if not directly in the affordable housing buildings, then in the surrounding area, so that those residents have access to EV charging and electric vehicles. Just so the quick question in the chat, we are allowed to invest outside of DC where there are additional credit providers over the long term. So we can't do a sole financing outside of the district. We can do, in partnership with others, financing outside of the district. We have not to date done that. So I do want to be transparent. We're focused right now on DC, but particularly for EVs, we recognize that fleets are often housed outside of the district and serving multiple regions. And so I think, that's an area where we expect to see some overlap and some partnering with some of our sister entities in Maryland and Virginia. Montgomery County Green Bank, for example, we've worked together with them on several different products. And so that would be an easy partnership for us to work with.
Eli, I have a question.
Please.
Good morning. Great to see you. Are there plans for the Commonwealth of Virginia to create a green bank, or Maryland to create a green bank as other states have done?
So Maryland has actually several green banks. There's 3 entities at least right now. So Montgomery County Green Bank, I mentioned. Maryland Clean Energy Center is the most similar in some ways to the state green bank. And there's also another one whose name I never get exactly right, so I apologize to Lynn, but that's focused purely on low-income solar. I know there have been some discussion at the legislative level in both states about a more formal state green bank, particularly when Build Back Better was being discussed more actively. There's $27 billion for a national green bank that would be a pass-through to fund state and local green banks. So if that legislation picks back up or actually passes, I expect you would see some of those bills that had been kicked around last year coming pretty quickly to make sure that either the entities in place are designated, or that the new entities are created.
Thanks, Eli. And I asked that question because with so many different organizations throughout the country with so many different names, what I have found very helpful is the term green bank. Working with the Michigan Green Bank, I know what I'm getting. Connecticut Green Bank, I know what I'm getting. DC Green Bank, I know what I'm getting. So that's why I was specifically asking, because with a green bank movement sweeping across the country slowly, it's just really nice to be able to easily find what you're looking for, as opposed to combing through several different types of names of organizations.
And
All right.
I will drop a link in the chat. That's a good question. There's a consortium of green banks, the American Green Bank Consortium, which has over 20 members and several members and kind of pre-members who are looking to get started. But if you're looking for a green bank, it's a good resource.
All right, you have any final words when we go to Miss Denise?
I do. Real quick. I wanted to answer the other question. We are not funding non-electric alternatives in the transportation space. There's legislation before the council that will prevent us from doing any fossil projects in all sectors at the end of this fiscal year. But we haven't looked at lower carbon alternatives in the transportation space aside from EVs. And then a few quick mentions for what's happening in the city. The focus right now, the mayor is extremely focused on our public fleet commitments. We're meeting regularly with all the other agencies who have public fleets. So those folks are working to make sure that we meet those commitments in the Clean Energy DC Act. The electrification roadmap process is well underway, going through review, and looking forward to seeing that when it comes out publicly. I should also mention the mayor's Build Back Better Infrastructure Task Force, which is ongoing and soliciting input from the public. So if you all have ideas about the types of grants or how some of these infrastructure law grants should be applied, the city has significant formula funding coming its way in the transportation side, but also several competitive grants that we want to make sure DC is best positioned for. And then the last thing I'll mention is our DDOT has also issued opportunity for public space charging in the past few weeks. And so for the charging manufacturers and developers, want to make sure you all are aware of that. It's the opportunity to have curbside charging, which we're incredibly supportive of and looking forward to working with others to help bring so that it's widely available, particularly in those areas where, we're in multifamily housing. Not every condo has that parking spot. We want to make sure that we can help reduce the challenges associated with electric vehicle ownership for all residents of DC. So thank you, Antoine.
Thank you. Thank you. We have some more questions. We'll get to those at the end. We want to go to Denise and give her a chance to talk about all the great stuff that they're doing, but leave your questions in the chat and I'll come back to all the questions after our final speaker.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I am so very pleased to be here. There is a beautiful ray of sun that is shining and I can't do anything about it. So it's not a visual effect, although I really do like it. So bear with me as I move through this beautiful ray of sun. Again, thanks for the introduction, Antoine. I am R.Denise Everson. I lead community engagement efforts with ThinkBox. And ThinkBox is an energy services company. We work currently nationally, but we are exploring opportunities around the globe to help large landowners, including large fleet owners, just move towards a better environment for us all. We do a variety of services. I'll put a link to our site in the chat momentarily. I love participating in these panels because they're so interactive and it's always nice to see familiar faces. So hello to all. I wanted to talk a minute about public-private partnerships and the needs, just doing a quick commercial. We as a private entity tend to work with public entities to move projects forward. And I think the way collaboration is definitely the way of now and the way of the future. So for those owners on the line and members on the line, strongly consider engaging in public-private partnerships to move your vision forward. Some federal entities were mentioned earlier, and I want to add to what was mentioned. So the Department of Energy has a really comprehensive website that is updated often that serves as a resource to you. There's also a segment on that site that is for training and resources for fleet managers. So in addition to applying for competitive grants on the federal level, on the state level, and on the local level, there are formula grants that were mentioned as earlier that you can apply for or participate in on the national, state, and local level. I don't want to overlook the opportunity for you as owners and members to train your staff, to have very highly trained, in addition to fleets of vehicles and fleets of equipment, investing in your people through training. There's so many great training opportunities that are free. And so don't miss those. In addition to the Department of Energy, I wanted to plug the EPA. EPA has a great site, Department of Transportation, and the USDA. I know that may sound interesting, but the USDA is investing in biodiesel, so fuels that have connection, where the interactions of transportation and agriculture meet. So explore all of the options that exist. With technology being at the ends of our fingertips, we're vastly poised to be successful wherever we are, especially in this region. There are so many great opportunities, financial opportunities and partnership opportunities that you should not miss out on. So use those fingers, go to your search engine, type in what you need, and click those links, because the resources, unlike any other time in history, the resources are there. It's easily accessible to us all. So that's all I have. I just do want to plug public-private partnerships again, and make sure you check out both the competitive and the formula grants that are easily available for your perusal through your search engine.
All right, I want to, Kim, can you set it up? Thank you, Denise, number one. I just want to share just a couple quick highlights for folks. Just give me 1 second, okay? All right, Kim, can you set it up where can I share?
Sure, you can go ahead.
All right, and we'll send all these slides around to you all, okay? This is something we just got from the Department of Energy. Some of you may or may not have been on this. I just want to run through a couple of the highlights of some of the funding. I don't know why it's not allowing me to move. Okay. All right. So the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Department of Energy, beyond the bipartisan infrastructure law, has a lot of funding, but they have a lot more based on this law. So just some quick highlights. They're going to invest $3.5 billion in weatherization and assistance programs. You heard about the $500 million to provide cleaner schools as well, plus a few $1 billion for other energy efficiency stuff. I'm going to skip through this part, but these are the main things that I want you to know about. And again, we are here to help you apply for some of this funding. I'm going to invest $7 billion in supply chain for batteries, $750 million grant program to support advanced energy technology, expanded authority of DOE's loan program office, and everyone's focused on this. Denise talked about this here. Workforce development. We are doing, even if you get new equipment, training your people for jobs is only one part of it with the skills, but it also has to be a mindset change. Some of you remember trying to get your workers to go to propane or even some of the biofuels. You still have to work on the mindset of workers. So workforce development becomes really important. We'll invest 11 billion in grants for states, tribes, utilities to enhance the resilience of their infrastructure. $3 billion for investment in the smart grid matching grant program. As you can see here, $6 billion for civilian nuclear technology credit. That's good. I know people are saying, what about the other fuels? Yeah, well, there's other stuff out there. Hydropower. I'm from Buffalo, Niagara Falls. So I've been always in the hydropower issues, talking about hydropower in my sleep. And some of you may have heard of hydroponics. We had a hydroponics plant in Buffalo before. Been involved with that as well. The deal with provide $21 billion for clean energy demonstration projects, research hubs, $10 billion for carbon capture, direct air capture, industrial emissions, and $2.5 billion for advanced nuclear. One of the big things Ira talked about was the Nevi program, which is really providing infrastructure investments, over $5 billion to help build out a national electric vehicle corridor. Much of that will go around on and off ramps of highways. And generally speaking, with this federal funding, the charging stations will have to be within 1 mile of the exit of the highway. So just some of the other key dates. So state DOTs about a week and a half ago had to submit their recommendations for the Nevi. We work with a number of the states in the District of Columbia with some recommendations as well. One of the two of the ones that Ira and I worked on for this new round, at least in DC, included Rhode Island and Pennsylvania avenues, because in Maryland they're already corridors for electrification and alternative fuels, but they weren't in the District of Columbia. So we worked with the DC Department of Transportation on those. I'm just going to run through these last couple of things just on some money. The other big thing is, even with a lot of this federal funding, there is an economic justice requirement to make sure that as you get this federal money, that is getting into areas that are very significantly underserved. So there is a requirement for this funding to make sure that your communities that are underserved and disadvantaged, that often have higher rates of air pollution and other challenges, that you don't put all the clean fleet, whether it's biofuels, whether it's nuclear, whether it's electrical. You got to make sure that 40% of those investments in infrastructure and vehicles are in those areas. This is just the last thing. There's going to some funding, different grants that are coming up as well. So I just wanted to share those with you. And Kim, if you can take the stop sharing off, that'd be great. And go right into some questions. Stop sharing. Okay. All right. So we got a bunch of questions, and I want to thank the Department of Energy. We work so well with them. And so there's a lot of funding, and we'll make sure that slide show has a lot of good information. We'll make sure you get a copy of that. So we did have some questions that are really important. I'll read a couple of the questions. But I did want to ask each of you, we have a number of local government fleet leaders. If you can talk about how what's the next step if they got a project, they want to get some equipment, they want to upgrade maybe their a fleet office, for technology, how do they reach out to you, and what's the timeline for that process? Denise or Eli, can you share that with them?
Sure, I'm happy to go first, Denise. And we work closely with Denise and ThinkBox, so this answer could be the same for at least part of the work that we do. So please reach out to us. Shira, who's on the line, is a great contact for community serving institutions. We'll put our general info box in, which is where for just all general inquiries that gets into our lead tracking, and I'll put my info in as well. Happy to have an initial conversation to sort of figure out which flavor of financing might be of interest, and we also can kind of chat through the timing. Overall, it varies quite a bit depending on how well formulated the projects are. If somebody comes to us with something that they know what they want, they have a pretty clear set of even designs in hand, then we can move fairly quickly depending on the size. I think our unrealistic expectation is sort of in the 2-month time frame, but we do see it longer than that, typically because we're still working with the borrowers, understanding what they're trying to put together, and those designs change in those appeals. That takes time as folks are going through that. But I think especially in the EV space, I think a conversation is a great first step. We work with partners like ThinkBox, so Denise can kind of walk through what the process looks like for folks who are coming in with them. And then for government agencies, we're having those conversations with the DC government agencies, but I would encourage for the other folks outside, if you're in Montgomery County, definitely reach out to the Montgomery County Green Bank or the Maryland Clean Energy Center or some of your local potential partners. There's also national green banks. And so if anyone's interested in connecting with one of those, I'm happy to put you all in touch. We work with several of those who work in the region.
Adding to what Eli said, we are here to help you fill in whatever gaps you have to get you ready for financing. So we work closely with the DC Green Bank and several other green banks. So we are here and we're happy to help. I put the link to ThinkBox in the chat.
All right, we had a question, Denise, what about training your staff? DC SEU has a good training opportunity.
They have great training opportunities, especially for DC residents. The DC SEU has been, in my opinion.
Can you explain what DC SEU is for the folks who don't know what that is?
Oh, the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. I have worked with them since their inception in different capacities. I worked with them while I was in the government. I worked with them in the private sector. They offer a great deal of training. I know I see Hasim is on the call with us, but visit the DC SEU. Again, DC Sustainable Energy Utility. They have amazing training, some of which is no cost. And I don't want to say free because nothing really is free, but it's no cost to you. Some of the training is no cost.
Definitely, Hasim, I just put my email in. Love to come by and visit you next week. Check out your facility because we do have a green job fair coming up and love to get you to help out on that as well. So definitely look forward to working with you. Ira and I have been working with IBEW and some others. I know I've heard a lot of good things that what you all are doing as well. I want to just go over a few other questions. Anyone else, if you have a question, put it in the chat. But I want to, somebody just put something, get a little delay thing here. I wanted to just say just a couple quick things. First, I want to go to Ira just to ask him a question about sometimes folks are a little afraid of going after government grants. Sometimes they can be intimidating. What advice would you give to a private business or a fleet manager who may be understaffed, needs some help, needs some technical support, may have won a grant once or twice, but you know, a lot of folks feel like, why even apply? And I know that we worked with, supported a group that got a grant last week from DC. They were kind of ambivalent about it. And even though we probably only get a few dollars out of it, but we supported them and they won the grant and they didn't think they could, and they pulled it together and they won. What advice do you give them? You helped a lot of groups. What advice would you give them?
Well, you're right. You know, a lot of people are intimidated. You know, there's so many different components to writing a proposal. And, you know, what you previously emphasized and what I've emphasized is that it's really our job to help you. If you have an idea, call us up and let's talk about it, because you have to get organized, understand what your needs are, where the most where the greatest opportunities are, and let us help you write the proposals. We can identify where the money is located and what other resources are available. You know, in many cases, like what Denise said earlier, some of it isn't even grants. You know, there are private organizations, nonprofits, and public organizations that are available to help as well. So first thing is to define what you want to accomplish, to call us up and talk to us about it. And, you know, hopefully there are some mechanisms available to help you achieve that. But you don't need to feel intimidated or that you're out there on your own. There are a bunch of people, including those people that are on the call here today, that can help you write those proposals, and in some cases help you administer them. That's the other thing. People are saying, oh gosh, if I get the money now, boy, I got to fill out a bunch of government reports. I don't want to write the reports. Antoine and I don't enjoy doing that, but we know how to do it, and we know other people that can help as well. So by all means, the strong message is, got an idea, call us.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that that is often a thing that discourages people. One is that we can do the work, but we don't have the time to apply, and a lot of these things do require a lot of paperwork, and it's not fun. But as Ira indicated, one thing that we do is a lot of reporting, and that's one way we can partner with you, is to help you build in a cost as a project or program administrator. We can assist you with that. And we have a number of other partners that can help you with that grant compliance work. So don't let that be a thing that discourages you. You might be a small entity, say, hey, I got about 10 vehicles, or maybe I have 500, and I don't know if we can do it. Look, if there's a will, there's a way. The only grant that you will never win is the grant that you don't apply for. Okay, so always
Absolutely.
remember. So that is the only way that you won't do that. Okay.
Antoine, I wanted to add also that it is often cumbersome to report, but think about, I have found that the same effort to report for big grants is the same effort to report for small grants. So you might as well just apply for the big grant. Fill in the gaps, find your strengths, work from a strengths-based approach, find the gaps that you have, find some public and private partners who will gladly fill those gaps and put in the application and shoot big, because it's the same level of compliance, whether they give you $200 or $2 million.
Great point. Great point. Well, I want to thank our panelists. Let me just double check and make sure I got everyone's question. Denise, did you put your email in there? Someone, oh, you did. Okay. Okay, so let me just make just a couple quick announcements. First, I want to thank our team for, I want to recognize Ezra Finken, one of our board members as well, and our treasurer. He soon to be treasurer of the organization. Ezra, thank you for being here. His company is doing a lot of great things with biofuels as well. And I'm really excited about that. And Ezra, I got to email you anyway because I want you to speak next week. Hopefully you're available. I want to mention just a couple things, couple announcements. We have two panels next week. The 31st, can the power grid handle the growth in EVs in the DMV? Can the power grid handle the growth in EVs in the DMV? That's on May 31st at 11 a.m. The next one is, can biofuels and hydrogen fuels cut local gas prices and air pollution? That is on June 1st at 11 a.m. June 1st at 11 a.m. Can biofuels and hydrogen fuel cells cut gas prices and air pollution? So those will be some really great panels to cap off our policy discussion. And so looking forward to that. And next week, we're going to really not only talk about these initiatives, but really get to some good dialogue about policy stuff as well. The other two announcements are on June 15th. We have our golf tournament. I would love for everyone on the call to be on there. Denise, I want to see you on the golf course. Ellie and Hashim and Joanne, I want to see you all on the there. If you're not a good golfer, you can do like me and be in the clinic, and then you can just go do some putting on some of the greens. Okay, that's my often formula. So I do the putting, and I'm good at putting. So last thing I want to mention is we have a Green Jobs Fair on June 29th as well. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we talked a lot about workforce, and it's going to be in DC, but this is for regional jobs. So it just happens to be in DC. The one we're going to do in the fall will actually be in Maryland, and then next year we'll do it in DC and Virginia. So please sign up for the job fair. If you have employers that are looking to hire folks, they can contact us at the office at info@gwrccc.org. They can also go to our website, and we do have an Eventbrite page as well. Kim, did I miss anything?
No, I'm just loading the chat with some information.
Okay. Well, without further ado, I want to thank our dynamic panel. They did a phenomenal job. Everyone, let's give them, turn your cameras on for 1 second. Let's give them a virtual hand clap for their good job. All of our panelists, they did a great job. They come for free to share all this good information with you and follow up with them. The key to all this is not just the meeting, it's the follow-up. The follow-up is what makes us successful. So thank you. Without further ado, I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank you all for being here. Be safe,